Okay, well, welcome, and thank you for expressing an interest in the trip, even if you're not thinking you want to go, but at least thank you for being part of this moment. So the trip is planned for May 17th to the 27th, 10 days, including the travel days. The host of the trip is the Jerusalem Center for Biblical Studies, or Educational Opportunities Tours, EO Tours. Jerusalem Center for Biblical Studies is a very reputable seminary, university in Jerusalem, a Christian university. And we're very thankful that Monty Luker, who is part of that organization, will be one of our tour guides. Did you guys have Monty Luker when you were on your trip, Norman, Shirley? No, okay. He was our tour guide in 2019 and was just phenomenal. Let me get a different sheet here. I've got one that's highlighted. Yeah, okay. Glenn Wooden from Acadia Divinity College will also be joining us as one of our teachers and guides. He's been to Israel many, many times, and he will be an invaluable resource to have with us on the trip. There you go. And if you've never met Glenn Wooden, he will actually be here to preach at the end of November, so you'll get a chance to meet him. And he's the Old Testament professor at Acadia, so he's got lots of information on the locations that we're going to. And then because this trip is a partnership between three churches, Birch Cove in Halifax, Cornerstone in PEI, and our church, the three pastors of those churches are going to be on the trip, and we will be leading devotional times. So the kind of the neat thing about this trip is that it's sort of three things in one. It's a great, trip experience, like a vacation experience. You're going to see some sights. You're going to have these cross-cultural moments. But it's also an educational experience where we are learning incredible things, and our Bibles are going to be coming alive to us in new ways. It's really mind expanding and paradigm shifting in terms of how you understand Scripture. But then the third element is that it's also a spiritual experience. I describe it sort of like a pilgrimage, and that was the part that I wasn't expecting when I went the first time. I was expecting to have this very strong educational experience, but what God surprised me with was how deeply moving it was and how of a spiritual experience it was. And so that's a big part of it, and that's why the three pastors we will be leading devotions, and we'll be having prayer times together, and it'll be really, really beautiful as we journey along together. So I want to go over the itinerary. Now this is subject to some changes, but this is pretty close to what we will be doing. So we'll fly out on Wednesday the 17th. Now there's some questions about the flights, and we'll talk about that at the end. The numbers right now aren't finalized, and there was some confusion, and we're still working that out. But we will be flying from Halifax, probably from Halifax to Toronto, and then Toronto to Tel Aviv, Israel. So the first full day is Thursday the 18th. We'll arrive and go straight to Caesarea Maritima. And I've got some pictures that I'll show here throughout that are just some of the photos that I took when I was in these places. This is a photo from Caesarea Maritima. I actually mentioned Caesarea Maritima in my sermon this morning. I don't know if you caught it, but the Apostle Paul, when he went before the governor Felix, before he was sent off to Rome, he went and was imprisoned in Caesarea Maritima. And so you can actually go and see the very place where Felix's palace was and where his throne would have been, and you can stand in the spot that the Apostle Paul had this conversation with Felix that we read about this morning. It's pretty cool. And you can see Herod's palace, and there's a lot of really neat things there, including a Roman aqueduct. So that's on the water, on the Mediterranean Sea. Then that night, we will stay in Netanya, which is on the Mediterranean Sea. Beautiful spot there. And when we went, we had free time in the evening, and a few of us went to the beach, and were able to dip our toes into the Mediterranean, and you could go swimming if you wanted to. So pretty cool. On Friday, we head up north towards the Galilee area, and we go, first stop is Megiddo. And this is a picture of some of the ruins at Megiddo. Megiddo is significant in the Bible because it's a big valley, and there were several battles that took place there throughout the scriptures. It is a very, very popular battlefield area. In the book of Revelation, the term Armageddon is basically Ha-Megiddo, the valley of Megiddo, talking about this literal place. So it has a lot of significance in terms of eschatology as well. So it's kind of a cool spot, and you can see mountains and hills. And so this is a thing. I think this is at Megiddo, where who was it that did all the building? Built all sorts of amazing things. I can't remember just now. What's that? Herod, but it wasn't Herod who built this. There was another. Anyway, I forget. There's some pretty impressive architecture that you'll see from ancient times. That day also, we'll go to Sepphoris. This is a place we didn't go on our first trip, so this will be a new experience for me. The ancient capital of Galilee, where Herod would have had a palace. Nazareth Village is a cool spot, so we'll go to Jesus' hometown. And Nazareth Village is a recreation of a first century village. It's not a historic site. It's a imagined kind of first century community at the time of Jesus. And they have even there oh my goodness, Norm, what do you call that? Where the Jews went on the Sabbath? A synagogue. Thank you. Knew it started with S. There's a synagogue there that they've built, and you recall the story of Jesus going into the synagogue in Nazareth and reading from the scroll of Isaiah. So that's a cool thing there, and pretty amazing. The Church of the Annunciation. This is a church that is... So in the Holy Land, there's a lot of these sites where important things happen in the Bible. And we don't know 100% if these are the actual locations. But based on history and how the church has commemorated these locations and considered them sacred sites for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, going back even into the pre-1000. These locations are often the probable location, and quite likely some of them are the actual locations. But oftentimes what they did is they built churches over top. So they'd find some ruins of some thing that they believe was from Bible times, and then they would build a church on top of it. And so the Church of the Annunciation is one of those things. This is where supposedly is the home of Mary, where the angel came and announced to her that she was going to have Jesus. So you get to actually look into that very house and see. That night, we will stay in Tiberias. This is on the Sea of Galilee, hotel on the Sea of Galilee. Beautiful. You look out your window and you see the hills that Jesus saw from the Sea of Galilee. On Saturday the 20th, we head further north to the most northern part of Israel. And there are some really amazing spots in that part. Lesser known, perhaps, in terms of Scripture, but really remarkable places. Hazor, a Canaanite city. This is from the time of... Well, there's several centuries reflected in the ruins of Hazor, but most significantly, biblically speaking, was the time of Joshua and when the Israelites went back into the promised land, and they wiped out the Canaanites who were there, who had taken over the land. And this is a Canaanite city, and you can see the layer from the time of Joshua when Hazor was burned to the ground. And so again, it's very affirming that what we have in our Bibles is a true story. Tel Dan, this was one of my favorite locations that we visited in Israel, and it's a nature preserve. This is a picture from there when we were on a little walk around. And Tel Dan, again, has ruins from all these different time periods reflected in Scripture, including all the way back to the time of Abraham. There is ruins there. It's called the Abraham Gate, and it was the gate of the city when Abraham would have visited the city. So that is going way back, way, way back. It's really a remarkable place. Caesarea Philippi as well, nearby. This is one of the places where these streams all come together, these springs that come out of the earth that all form the Jordan River. This is where these places are. And Caesarea Philippi is where Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And that I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. We'll go to that very place where he said those words. Bethsaida is a possibility. There's occasionally a question mark in the plans, and that's because we don't know for sure if that's going to happen. But that is the hometown of Peter, James, and John, the fishermen. And there's some ruins there. Pretty cool. On Sunday, what will we do for church? Well, you're going to have a very unique worship experience on Sunday because we will go on a boat in the Sea of Galilee and have a worship service on the Sea of Galilee. And we'll also visit some towns around the Sea of Galilee, places where Jesus would have visited a lot. These are like the most common Jesus places where Jesus would have been many, many times, including the places where he multiplied the loaves and the fishes, the places where he gave the Sermon on the Mount, the church where he told Peter, Church of the Primacy of Peter. I'm not sure what that is. Don't recall going to that one. Capernaum, that's Peter's hometown, where his mother-in-law was, and there's a story of Jesus, ministering to people at Peter's mother-in-law's house, and people bringing a sick man down through the roof. You can see the very ruins of that very house. Just a stone's throw from the synagogue that was there at the same time, and a place where a church had been built over the years. Amazing. Magdala is a very cool spot. So Mary Magdalene, she was from this town of Magdala, and for years and years and years, there was no evidence of the town of Magdala, no archaeological evidence of it. And just recently, like in the last 10 years, they found the ruins of the town of Magdala. And so this new site where you can go and visit, and there's beautiful mosaics on the floor, and they've built a new church there. It's gorgeous. We're going to celebrate communion there. Then on Monday, we head south down to the Samaria region where the Samaritans would have been from. You recall the Good Samaritan and the woman at the well, those sorts of places. So there's an incredible site called Bet Shean, I don't know how to say it. But anyway, this is a photo of one of the scenes of Bet Shean. It's one of the biggest Roman excavations in Israel, and it's absolutely incredible, mind-blowing, the stuff you'll see there. Big theater and everything. Then we go to Samaria, where Ahab, thank you. Ahab was the guy who built all the stuff around Israel. So Ahab and Jezebel, you'll see their home. It's another impressive site. Jacob's well, where Jesus met the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well. You can go and drink the water from the well. It's still an active well. Jericho, the city of Jericho, and shopping. Some of those things, that's a full day, so some of those things may not happen, but those are the possibilities. Then and that night we will stay at a new location in En-Gedi, and this is by the Dead Sea. So we're going further south, and En-Gedi, there's a kibbutz there. A kibbutz is like a commune where the Israelites live. It's a unique way to live, but there's a hotel at this kibbutz. What's that?
You can just leave me there.
Yeah. Have you been there? Oh, it is gorgeous. I think we have a photo that I took from that place. Elizabeth? Yeah. Yeah, so this is a picture from the grounds there. You can see this is like looking back up into the mountains. If you were to look the other way, you would be looking down to the Dead Sea. And this En-Gedi is a nature preserve that has some canyons and rivers, and there's a waterfall and stuff that we could hike to. This is where King David hid from Saul when he was on the run from Saul. And so you're walking in the steps of King David. It's pretty cool. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It's like a resort, swimming pool, spa. So this is the kind of the moment of the trip when you just sort of relax and enjoy the luxury and enjoy the beauty of the place. You can go to the Dead Sea and float in the Dead Sea, do the mud bath of the Dead Sea mud. That's a popular thing to do. There's also an optional hike that we'll do to the waterfalls and things in the places where David would have been hiding from King Saul. Then on the Wednesday, we go to Bethlehem. Bethlehem is in the West Bank in Palestinian territory. You might think, oh, that sounds scary. It's safe. You don't need to worry about that. It's so safe for us. Not so great for the Palestinians, but anyway, we will be fine. They're very used to tourists. And in Bethlehem, we'll visit the Church of the Nativity, where Christ was born. We will visit Shepherd's Field, where the angel appeared to the shepherds. We know where that is. And there's also a place called the Herodian, or the Herodium, which I have not been to. I don't know, have you guys, did you see that one? No, so this is a new one for me too. This was another palace of Herod that's there in that area. Then on Thursday, we go to Jerusalem. We'll stay the night, by the way, in Bethlehem. And then on Thursday, we go through the checkpoint into Jerusalem. And then we spend 2 days in Jerusalem, going to the Temple Mount, the Western Wall. Oh, did I forget? I missed Masada. Oh, man. Okay, back up to Tuesday. Masada is, next slide. Right there. Okay, so Tuesday the 23rd, Masada. Masada is a really important location in Jewish history. It's not really a whole lot of biblical significance to Masada, but it was a palace that Herod built, a fortress on the top of this huge mountain in the valley where the Dead Sea is. And the ruins there are just amazing, and the reconstructions and everything. And this was where there was a massive suicide when the Romans attacked the Israelites. At one point, they basically gave up, and they all killed themselves. So it's a little morbid, but the location is incredible. You go up by gondola. It's a must-see spot in Israel. And then, so back to Jerusalem. Western Wall, or the Wailing Wall as it's sometimes called, we'll go there. The men go to one part, the women go to the other. Sorry, ladies. The women aren't allowed to go to the main part. I know, don't blame me. Blame the Israelite authorities. That's their rules. But there's the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, where they pray. The men will put prayers in there, and we can pray there. We'll go to the Temple Mount and go right up to where the temple was, where the Dome of the Rock is now. It's safe to do that at the moment, anyway. There are periods when it's not so safe, but it should be safe when we're there, Lord willing. Also, that's the last photo I have, but by the way, I'm wearing the same shirt. Someone noted that this morning. I didn't realize that was going to happen. The city of David, we'll visit those ruins. This is where David's palace was. Hezekiah's tunnel is amazing. Did you do that, Norman Shirley, the Hezekiah's tunnel? Yeah. So this is a literal tunnel that goes underneath the city of Jerusalem, an ancient tunnel built by King Hezekiah as a way to get in and out of the city covertly. And it's pitch black, and you're in a narrow tunnel, and there's water dripping, and it's creepy, but it's so cool. So, what's that? That's right. Yeah, it was a source of water. That was the main point of it, right? It was to bring water into the city, so that if they were stuck in the city, they would still have fresh water coming in, and the water still runs in it today. Pretty cool. And it empties out at the pool of Siloam, where Jesus did healing miracles. So we'll be there as well. And then on Friday is really like Easter Day, right? It's Good Friday. We're going to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was crucified on Mount Calvary. You can go out to the very place where we believe that took place. You can go into the empty tomb of Jesus. We'll also go to the upper room. This is something I didn't do on my first trip, so I'm looking forward to that. Did you do that? Yeah. We didn't get the chance to do that the first time around, so we'll be able to go up into the upper room where Jesus had the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper. Mount of Olives, where Jesus prayed. There's actual trees there that could be as old as 2,000 years old, so from the time of Jesus. And then ending our trip at the Garden Tomb, which is another possible location of where Jesus was buried and resurrected. So it's a pretty incredible experience, start to finish. Any questions about the agenda, the itinerary? All right, and if you have questions at any point, just, shout it out. Okay, let's talk about the costs of the trip. Now, this is not the final cost. This is the estimated cost at the moment. $4,381 US, so about $6,000 Canadian. Now, that was a price that they gave us by accident as if we were flying just from Toronto. It doesn't include Halifax to Toronto. But, so you'd think, oh, so it's going to be even more. But Glenn, who's working on this for us, Glenn Wooden, he said that actually he thinks that we're going to be able to get a better price on the flight overall from Halifax to Toronto and to Tel Aviv for cheaper than what they have quoted us just from Toronto. He thinks that he's going to be able to do that. So the price will be about $6,000 or maybe a little bit less. We'll be flying from Halifax to Israel. This price is based on double room occupancy, so you'll be sharing a room, not a bed, but sharing a room with someone. This includes the costs of everything, all the transportation, all the hotels, every meal, breakfast, lunch, and supper, all included, and all the fees for every location, every site that we'll visit. So there is literally nothing, no additional cost that you would be expected to have. This is completely all-inclusive. The only other thing is if you want to buy any souvenirs, then you would have to bring money for souvenirs. And you can get some pretty cool souvenirs. So you might want to think about that. It should say it would cost a person, not it would a person. If you wanted to have a single room, you have to add $1,481 to the cost of the trip. Then you can have a private room. If you want to look after your own flights, because maybe you got air miles for days and you think, I can go on air miles, then the trip is only $2,783, but you got to pay for your own flights. And then there's an optional Egypt extension as well. I'm not planning to go on that, and I don't know if that's based on interest, but there is the possibility that at the end of the trip, the crew will, I think, drive to Egypt and see those sites there as well. So the information is there on that. All right. There should have been a sheet going around. If you didn't get a chance to sign that page, let us know if you're interested in getting further information and being in the loop on this. Then you can add your name to that. Any questions? Oh. Yes, good question. I knew that I was supposed to mention that, but I forgot to write it down. Walking. The question is how much walking is involved. A lot of walking, actually. It's quite important that you are able, physically fit, to do a lot of walking. So there was someone who said they were interested in the trip, and I said, there's a lot of walking involved. And he said, okay, probably not for me. And that is important because it's been expressed multiple times in our meetings as we've been preparing that we do not intend to be waiting around for people that are slowing things down. So you have to be able to do the walking. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the only other thing. Ken Phillips brought a photo album here today from when he went 20 years ago, him and Lois, and if you want to look through those pictures, you can do that.
Special visas required or anything?
No. Special visa, I don't think so. That's all. You have to have your passport, of course, up to date. One of the things that they don't, normally when you go places, they stamp your visa, but in Israel, they don't stamp it because they put a little thing in like that you can take in and out. Because if you have an Israel stamp in your passport, it prevents you from entering some non-Israel friendly countries. So if you want to travel in the future to, Lebanon, yeah, they might not let you in if you have an Israel stamp in your passport. So, yeah.
What about immunizations for?
Yeah, I don't think Israel requires any particular immunization. I don't have to have any special shots. Just your regular immunizations should be sufficient. All right. Cool. Well, thank you. And of course, I'm available if you have any other questions or want to talk, and I'll be in touch, especially when I have more information, when I have the final details.
Does the price of insurance, like if something happens and you can't go, like when do you pay versus?
That's a good question. I don't know that. The question is, does the price include insurance? Like if you can't go and can you get your money back? I don't know. I will ask that question. I'm also not sure about medical insurance, so that's something I will look into as well. Yeah.
Wait for a storm. We might as well stay home.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Go have some lunch.